Hey leading ladies, it's Katie, and today I'm going to be talking about effective communication. Effective communication is necessary in all areas of life, but especially in the workplace. Effective communication is defined as verbal speech or other methods of relaying information that get a point across. Having good communication helps sharing information and expressing your thoughts and feelings. It's important to remember that it's not just what you say, but how you say it as well. During effective communication, you're participating in both verbal and nonverbal communication, and nonverbal communication has a greater opportunity for impact and connection. In fact, our workbook says that about 7% of your meaning is derived from what you say, and up to 93% of your meaning is derived from how you say it. So it's important to remember to always look at yourself and realize how you're saying what you're saying and making sure that those around you understand so that there's less opportunity for misinterpretations, because that can get very tricky, which I know from personal experience. Effective communication is critical to have during your internship, and there are numerous aspects that goes into having successful communication with your peers and colleagues, which are listening, speaking, writing, nonverbal communication, and managing conflict. In the workbook, it gives guidelines for these different aspects of effective communication, which I'm going to give you a few of each of them just to remind you and to help you with your internship. For listening, a few of the guidelines is it's very important to be a good listener and not just a good talker. It's also good listening requires you to focus on what the person is saying rather than practicing your response. There's the next one. It requires your ears, eyes, brain, and heart to be fully engaged. And I always like to think of a saying that my grandma used to always tell me, which was, God gave you two ears and one mouth for a reason. You're supposed to listen twice as much as you talk. So I think that's something that I keep in the back of my mind, especially at my internship site, since I am just an intern and I have a lot of people around me that know what they're saying and how to help the public more than I do. So I need to remember to listen and kind of learn that information before I just say something. And another guideline for listening is make sure that your body language indicates that you're listening. Eye contact is one way to demonstrate effective listening. And from personal experience, I am a person that looks you directly in your eye when I'm talking to you. I think it's very important. It shows respect, but also shows them that you're listening. So I definitely recommend that last guideline. And it's something that I've been complimented on quite a few times in my professional career, with teaching and internships and interviews in general. Speaking, some guidelines for speaking: introduce yourself to others whom you do not know. It's always important to introduce yourself, but also when they introduce themselves to you, repeat their name. Like, say, hey Steve, it's nice to meet you. And that helps you remember their name, and it also shows them that you are listening to them. Another guideline is be polite and civil with everybody. Pay attention to the tone of your voice and make sure it's warm and calm. So again, it's not always what you say, but how you say it. So if your tone of voice doesn't fit the situation, that's going to throw some people off and make them misinterpret what you're saying. Another guideline is check for understanding and make sure the other person has fully understood. So once again, try to limit misunderstandings by making sure that someone understands what you're saying. And that kind of goes into another guideline of don't use slang and don't use, sayings that you use, because it might have a different meaning or definition for someone else, especially if you're from a different part of the state or different part of the country. And the last one for speaking is pay attention to your body language. Do you smile when you're greeting people? And this one's very important for me and my internship personally, which I'll get into in a little bit, because I greet tens and hundreds of people throughout my time at my internship. Another aspect of successful or effective communication is presenting in meetings. During meetings, be on time, dress appropriately, and use more formal communication style. It's important to remember that when you are in a professional setting, use professional communication and not what you would use with your friends. That's something that I find myself being able to do quite easily, which I don't particularly use slang with my friends and family. I try to always practice professional communication because as a teacher, you don't have a button to just turn off teacher mode. You're a teacher 24/7, and I found that out the hard way. Another guideline for presenting in meetings is think about what outcomes you would like to achieve at the meeting. Personally, I have staff meetings every Tuesday with my internship, and so it's important for me to know what I need to do after that meeting, whether it's something that the manager comes down and says we need to do this for the site, or if it's something that I've already been assigned. It's important to know what I need to do and get out of the outcome of the meetings. Another aspect, and this one goes more towards presenting, is be well prepared. Think of how you want to present your information. Have backup documentation on a jump drive and in a hard copy if needed, which is just a general guideline for us as college students or even professionals. It's important to always make sure that you have backups and you test all of the equipment to make sure it works. So I definitely recommend that one as well. Another part of effective communication is writing emails, and some guidelines are emails should be short, concise, and to the point. That's definitely important. I had a student or a cooperating teacher in my student teaching that he straight up told me, if your email's long, I will not read it. He wants to know exactly what you're saying or what you're asking within a few short sentences, so it's important to keep it short and to the point. Another guideline rather is don't hit send without double checking that you're sending it to the right person and that it can't be misinterpreted. I've had trouble with that myself. I recommend writing the message first and then putting the recipient in the to category, and that helps you. So if you accidentally hit send, it won't send it to anyone because you haven't put a recipient in the address box yet. Never send messages without first using spell check. That's obviously important. You want to look professional. You want to look like you know what you're talking about. And if you have, autocorrect or, misspellings in your emails, that's not going to look good to a boss or an employer. So definitely make sure that you check your email before you send it. And going back to not what you say but how you say it, if you doubt the tone of your email, if it kind of comes across as snarky or unprofessional, have someone else check it for you before you send it. It's always better to be safe than sorry. And another aspect of effective communication is conflict management. And some of the guidelines is familiarize yourself with internship responsibilities and check with your supervisor before committing to something for which you're not responsible. Stay out of office politics and gossip. Try not to be a complainer. Focus on the good parts instead. Should you have been involved in conflict, bring it to your supervisor first, which is something that I've had to do personally this summer. And learn to frame things positively. It's difficult to, keep positive about some things, but it is very effective in communication, but also it shows your supervisor that you are responsible and you're an adult and you can handle things. And the last aspect of effective communication is nonverbal communication. And I have a few guidelines for that, which is your appearance should look professional. If you're in a professional setting, you should look professional. Even if you're going for an interview or something like that, it is more important to be and look professional than to just come in jeans and a t-shirt. And your facial expressions, postures, and gestures should reflect the point you're trying to make. Again, it's not how you say it, or not what you say, but how you say it, and your body language definitely gives a big part of how you're saying something. So if you have your arms crossed like this, people are going to think, oh, she's angry. So always be aware of how you're standing or the facial expressions that you have. And if you follow these guidelines, you're communicating professionally and effectively. And to go into my internship site, I am interning at the CSS News Civil War Interpretive Center in Kinston, North Carolina, which Golden Leaf has actually donated to over $100,000 to help get the exhibits going, and it looks very, very amazing. I'm very proud of it, and I'm a little biased, but I love it there. And as a state historic site, we're open to the public, and we inform them on the story of the Confederate ironclad, the CSS News. And we have the remains of the CSS News and thousands of artifacts that were recovered with the ship in the 1960s. The work I'm doing there is very important because I'm developing educational tools and resources for the teachers to use in the surrounding area that teaches the history of the CSS News as well as the effects the Civil War had in eastern North Carolina. And I'm also assisting in sorting through artifacts for a new exhibit that will be hopefully finished by the end of the summer, so that's really exciting. And relating this module back to my internship site, one thing that stood out to me was the nonverbal communication has a greater opportunity for impact and connection. Once again, going back to that statistic of 7% of your meaning is derived from what you say and 93% is derived from how you say it. I've definitely experienced this firsthand at my internship site with the manager of the site, so not my supervisor, but like the top manager. He's just not communicated effectively with any of us, and so it's kind of hard to know what he's saying and what he wants, and so we've had a bit of conflict throughout the whole entire staff. Another nugget or takeaway I had was with the conflict management. And this summer I'm working with another intern, and she's from ECU. And we get along fine, except for a few times she's tried to badmouth UNC. And I've had to keep a positive outlook because, I'm at my place of work. This isn't something to talk about sports or schools or things like that. But there's just some things that she said that where they were beyond offensive, and so I've had to bring that to the supervisor and kind of been like, I don't feel comfortable with this. It's not nice for her to be saying bad things about my school and things like that. And it's been handled quite well, but there's still a little bit of tension, and I'm sure that it'll continue to go away as we get to know each other more and going past labels of I'm an ECU student or I'm a UNC student. And so for now, I definitely believe that these guidelines are important, and you need to keep them in the back of your mind when you're communicating in a professional atmosphere, whether that be in your internship now or a job in the future. And I feel like it'll be beneficial to you if you do it. And it allows for effective communication and a successful experience. So I definitely think that all of us could take away from these guidelines. It may not be the same takeaways, but each of us could relate to them in some way or another. So I'm sorry that this is a very long video, but I tried to cover everything to make sure that you guys understood. And if you have any questions, let me know. Sorry that this is kind of close to the deadline. I work weird hours, Tuesday through Saturday, 9 to 5. So I'm having to do it on my day off. But I hope you enjoy, and let me know if you have any questions.